Yay! Assalamu alaikum. Whoop, 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 whoop. Assalamu alaikum. And this is Hawa. And today I am obviously taking over. If you've not watched the stories, then check the stories. I have been putting up little bits of nuggets here and there, responding to questions that people have, and also sharing what people are grateful for. So, assalamu alaikum. And this is Hawa. My bio is on the page, and yes, salam sir. Yeah, and today I just want to ramble a little bit about putting the heart back into Islam because I feel like it's such an important topic and we don't talk about it enough. So engage me, stay with me, let me hear your thoughts about it. And yeah, let's just have a good time. Hi, sisters with the heart. Where's that you? Hello, Lainka. Saviko Bello. Khadija. Yes, 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 yes. Salam, salam, salam. Yes, so I am talking today about putting the heart back into Islam. And I just want to give a bit of a background as to, why I'm talking about that and not something that is like very understandable. Like people are like putting the heart back into Islam. What's that? What are you really trying to say? And yes, what I'm trying to say and how this came about is that it's just from personal observation about we Muslims and how we carry out Islam. And I'm not here to like knock anybody or, try to trash anybody's way of understanding or how they've learned or how they've been conditioned to think about Islam. I'm just really here to share some perspective and hopefully, take what's beneficial and you can leave the rest. And inshallah, it's beneficial for all of us. And inshallah, it's beneficial for me as well. And it's a reminder for me first. So when I say putting the heart back into Islam, what I'm really saying is Islam has become something that's very mechanical. So we engage in the mechanics. They say pray 5 times a day. Okay, we'll go and pray. It's time for dhuhr. Okay, we'll go and pray, and we do all the routines, and then we finish and all of that. But where is the heart? Where is how do we put our heart back into every single action and every single act of ibadah? And I don't even just mean it from an Islamic perspective. I don't just mean it from acts of worship perspective, like in the generic acts of worship, like, prayers and things like that. I mean, even in our everyday lives, and I always tell people like, look, you want to know the true reflection of your Islam or your deen, look at outside of when you're doing your acts of worship. That's really who you are. So it's easy for us to say, oh, it's time for, maybe this lecture or this halaqah or, it's salah, and we're all like all well and good and humble and all of that. But then when we step out, we're very quick to like insult people or judge people or pull people down or drag people like is the thing, or do cancel culture now and things like that. And it shows, and it's really a reflection of the state of our hearts more than anything. It's so much more than just, are you praying 5 times a day? Are you, because those are mechanical. And while they are, things that have been, demanded of us, Allah has said that this is it. This is how you worship me. This is how you love me. It is not the mechanics that are the love. It is the heart in the mechanics that are actually the love. So it's a lot of times I say that of Muslims, and maybe myself included, we're very quick to judge people on the mechanics. And because we feel like, what, I'm doing the mechanics, I'm praying 5 times a day, I'm wearing a hijab, I'm doing all of that. But where is your heart? Are you kind? Will people tell you that you're a kind person? Are you a loving person? Are you quick to, make excuses for people? Are you quick to defend people? Are you quick to speak a kind word? Are you quick to, not judge or stand in the way of, obstruction of justice or things like that, or fairness? That is Islam as well. Because it's sad, because one of the reasons why I'm talking about this is over the last week, Islam has really come under attack. And if you didn't know about this, I mean, especially in Nigeria, there have been a couple of happenings over the past week where, it was Muslims, sadly, they did a couple of things regarding, punishing somebody for blasphemy and jailing people. And then we had Muslims saying, yes, and some of this, I don't want to go into the details, but just reading all the comments and the tweets about it, I was like, wow, like Muslims are really lacking a whole lot of compassion. And this is not Islam, and, it is said that, like, I think, I think is the best of you is the person that is kind, or I think I forget it's by Muslim. I'm gonna pull it up very soon and I'll take a look at that. But it's really about the emphasis on kindness. But it's so sad that when you think about Islam, just ask the average person what comes to mind when you think of Islam. And it is not kindness, it is not peace, it's not love. Because sadly, no matter what we think, we are ambassadors of our religion. We are ambassadors of our deen. I remember somebody coming to one of my live streams on my page, and after it, I think she sent me, was it a DM or a LinkedIn message or something? And she was like, you know what, this just watching your live streams, and by the way, I wasn't talking about Islam, I was just talking about my advocacy and things like that. And she was like, it's just so amazing. You have changed my mindset about Muslims. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Considering that I was really just talking about advocacy, I don't know how and why, So it just shows you that irrespective of what we're doing, we are constantly portraying, if not anything, our religion. And it could be unfair sometimes because really, we're just human beings. Why do we have to be held to like greater standards? Maybe because you wear a hijab, or maybe you grow a beard, or maybe you are like, whatever it is that you are. And it just feels like you are held to greater standards. Well, here's the reason. Islam has come under a lot of scrutiny. Islam is not being, portrayed in the best ways in media, irrespective of what it is. So clearly we do have a greater responsibility, and it may not be a responsibility to go out and deliberately try to change it, but it's realizing that each of us has a personal responsibility to uphold our Islam. And again, it is not enough. And I dare go out and say it, and it might sit uncomfortably for a lot of people. It is not about whether you wear a hijab. It is not about whether you pray 5 times a day only. It's not about all of that. It is how do you treat your security? How do you treat your staff? How do you tweet? What are the words you use? Are you compassionate about people? Are you always there when Islam is coming under attack? Are you there to always be that calm within the storm for other people, or generally as a public, someone in the public light or something like that? That is Islam as well. And I just happen to see that we're not doing that. I remember speaking a couple of years ago with one of our Muslim sisters who was really struggling. And she was struggling with her Islam because she was like, I get that I pray. And that's the thing. On the outside, people look at me and they're like, oh my gosh, you pray, you're this and you're that. And she was like, inside, how I don't feel anything. Like, I don't feel anything. I do it because they say we should do it. And if we're being very honest, that's how most of us are. We do it simply because, they said that we should pray, so we pray. And we get so good at the routine that we're so good at, it's 2 o'clock, it's time to pray. Oh, it's 4, it's time to pray. And then people look at it and they're like, oh my gosh, mashallah, like all of that is fantastic. Yes, but we need to become a people of the heart. We need to begin to stop tearing people apart just because of their physicalities, because what that is doing is that it is pressuring more people to please people as against please Allah. Because while Allah has commanded you to do certain things, it is your heart ultimately that He's looking at. So you might want to do all the routines and all the things that will be societally acceptable, culturally acceptable, so that people would say you're a good Muslim, so that you can appear to be a good Muslim. And a lot of times it's not something that we really think about, or it's really our intention, but that's what happens. We're really just trying to do it for, I want to blend into the Muslim community. I want to do it because, it's what's expected of me from other people. If I don't do it, people will tear me. They'll drag me, And I'm like, yeah, but where is the heart? Where is the sincerity? Where is the intention? And I don't blame people for having these kind of thoughts. It's because we as a collective have always pressured people to conform to us. So when somebody doesn't wear a hijab or her hair is showing, why is your hair showing? And I'm like, yo, like, chill, guys. Oh my God. You want to correct somebody, well and good. It's not even supposed to be public admonishment, but let's not even get into that. But it is, are we even allowing people to connect with the heart? Or are we trying to hold people to our own standards? Are we trying to hold people? We're trying to be the ones to judge people. So, look, hey, cover your hair. And the person runs and covers their hair, and then all of a sudden you're satisfied. But you didn't give the person the opportunity to connect with your heart. A lot of us, that is where we operate from. And we do it because we're on the two sides at some given point in time. Maybe at some point in our lives, maybe when we're wearing hijab or something, people were always like, whether hijab, it's modesty and all of that. And then you started wearing the hijab, but guess what? Nothing really changed for you. Your spirituality didn't grow. You didn't feel more connected to Allah. You didn't feel like it was an act of service, not an act of ibadah to Allah. You didn't feel like any of that. You just felt like, you know what, I don't want people to drag me. And that's the hypocrisy in what we're building as an Islamic culture right now. And I feel like it's so timely because I feel like we don't talk about it enough, because we're scared that by talking about it, maybe we're giving people a slap on the back or just a tap on the back that, okay, you can do whatever you want to do physically as long as your heart is there. Look, we're not even supposed to be the judges in the first place. And I know that a lot of people are going to get uncomfortable about this. And let me let you know that maybe that's the ego that's pricking you, because you feel like you should be the one to tell people what to do and what not to do. Yes, so it's so important that we begin to encourage people to put their hearts back into Islam. And by doing that, you know, perhaps we're also encouraging ourselves to put our hearts back into Islam. So let me give a couple of examples of what that looks like. So the most obvious example, obviously, is Salat. It's about our prayers. The one thing that connects us with our Maker. The one thing that, the first thing we're going to be judged on. You know, it's about our Salat. It's about, yes, you know, pray 5 times a day, do all of those things. All well and good. Do we even know what we're saying? When we actually pray, do we actually connect? Or are we being mechanical? Do we just do the motions and say what's expected in sujood and ruku and tashahud and all of those things? Do we just do that? Or are we truly in the prayer? You know, are we in a conversation with Allah? Are we one with our Maker in that moment? Or is it just a matter of, you know what, it's prayer time, let me get this over and done with? I had a story of a friend during my master's year that told me something. She was like, when I start my prayers and I see that I'm not connected, I stop. And I was like, a lot of us are going to be stopping then. You know, and she was like, yeah, it's one of the ways that she learned to build khushu. And she also learned to build a connection with Allah. It was about, if I start and I feel like my mind isn't there, I actually stop. No matter how, you know, prayer time is going, I stop and I go do something else, or I go and sit down and I want to bring my mind back to the fact that I'm talking to my Maker, and then I start again. And while it may seem a bit excessive, because she was like, you know, sometimes even if she's in the second rakah, she would actually literally stop again. And I'm like, girl, I know like what you're doing and all of that, but you know, and it's so amazing that I thought that, because a lot of times when we go and pray, we're thinking about the time like, oh yeah, let's do this thing. We need to hurry up back to our life, you know. But it was really profound. I took what was necessary from it. And what was necessary was that she didn't want to do an act of service just for it to be mechanical. She wanted it to come from her heart. And if her heart was not in it, she would stop and she would try an extra effort to put her heart back into it. You know, at least she was honest, you know, to be able to say, you know what, my heart is not in it properly. And I'm going to like step back and I'm going to put my heart back into it. And I'm going to try to say my salah all over again and see where that takes me, you know. So the point is, I'm not saying you have to do that, but I'm just trying to say that it helps us to rethink our perspective on what salah is. It's not just an obligation. Hey, go and pray. Oh yeah, like it's not just that. It is, do you know what you're saying? Do you feel it deep down inside? Do you feel like you're connecting to your Maker? And that's why a lot of times, sometimes when I'm talking about it, and I know a lot of people generally are not generally disagree, but I tell people like, I get you're a Muslim, but do you have a connection? Because for me, that's the spirituality, and that is the crux of the deen. And that's how I see it a lot of times. It is that our spirituality, our connection is superior to the doctrine, is superior to the dogma, is superior to the framework. You know, the framework is supposed to lead us to the connection, but what happens is that we get stuck in the framework. We get stuck in what we're supposed to do and how it should look like and all of those things, that we forget that we're supposed to use that as a pathway to connect and become one with Allah. And that is something that I really wanted to mention. Another thing that I really wanted to mention as well is just, you know, our everyday life, you know, putting our heart back into Islam in our everyday life. And what I really mean is your everyday duties. So whether that is in serving your family, or whether that is in your workplace, or whether that is in your own personal, like maybe your job, your business, your organization, is your heart in it in terms of sincerity and intention? You know, do you conduct, you know, are you kind to people? You know, it's so fundamental that it almost sounds so cliche. You know, are you kind to people? Do you say kind words to people? Before you trash people, do you give them a benefit of the doubt? Before you drag them, do you think, you know what will I want people to do to me if I was the one that had, you know, a slip up or something like that? What is it that keeps us from being compassionate. Because I assure you that if we did a poll on some other, not here obviously, and we asked people generally, what comes to mind when you think of Muslims or when you think of Islam, kindness probably wouldn't be one of the first five things. Peaceful people would not be one of the first five things. Just and fair people, probably not. Where have we gone wrong in our Islam? Have we become so stuck in rules and regulations that we have forgotten the DNA of what Islam should be? Have we forgotten our ancestors and how kind and how they made history and how, people don't even want to hear that anymore these days, because they're like, I beg, isn't all Muslims that are this? I remember last week was brutal on Twitter because, and in my mind, I was wondering, where are the Muslims? Like, we need to talk and we need to show that we are a majority, and it's not about all these people trying to trash people and lock people down and say people can be killed or detained anyhow just because they spoke a certain kind of word. Where is that spirit of Islam? How are we embodying the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where after all they did to him in persecuting him, he still told, his companions and the Muslims, and he still told the believers that, look, you should be kind when you're in a position of justice. And even if you're in a position that you can take revenge, don't forget that Allah is looking at you. Don't forget that, this is an opportunity for you to show your deen. But sadly, that's not what was happening. I was even shocked. I remember tweeting last week and I was like, you know what? I totally understand why people leave Islam. I totally get it. Because these days, it's a whole lot of oh my gosh, it's a battle. I have a couple of friends over the years that are that have left the fold of Islam. And, I don't even have the mouth to confidently say, oh, come back, don't go anywhere, and I'm just weak, because sometimes when they tell me their reasons, from a psychological perspective, obviously, because that's my area of work, I get it. I get it because we're social beings, and the identity of your group is going to be more powerful than the identity of yourself, more often than not. So that's why a lot of people would like to join certain groups because of the identity of the group. So what do I mean? How Muslims are performing in the world can be more powerful than how I see my own self-identity as a Muslim. So that is to say that the identity of the group is powerful. And that's why we need to understand. And maybe by the time you start looking at Islam from that perspective, we begin to see why, Islam has always been a religion of community, and why we can never stop it from being a religion of community, and why the image of the community a lot of times can be more powerful than the image of yourself. So you may be doing good, you're doing everything, you're kind to the people around you and all of those things, but as a community, what are you contributing to the image of Islam? What are you what are you contributing to ensuring that the community is being perceived in good light, in a way that, we're putting our best foot forward, in a way that, we're not subconsciously excluding ourselves from certain kind of conversations and gatherings and things like that, so somebody says some people don't even know the meaning of Islam, and I dare say that some Muslims don't even know the meaning of Islam. And it's not about judgment. For me, I feel like it's a reminder for all of us to not just consider our Islam from a place of I was born Muslim and so I rode with it, but from a place of I was born Muslim, but I want to decide about this Islam. Because what I see a lot of times, and this is after, I of course I studied in the UK for a while and all of that, and I used to tell people that, I felt more of a Muslim in the UK than I actually felt in Malaysia, where I also studied as well, and in Nigeria as well. And people are like, really, white people and all of those things that people say. And I'm like, yeah, actually, because guess what? When you're in a place where your sense of community is so important, you guys do extra. You do extra with yourselves. You are more conscious. You realize why it's so important to prioritize spirituality and prioritize image. And even though you're balancing that on the inside with, the framework, the structure, the dogma, and all of that, you're ensuring that you're putting the best image forward. And I feel like we've lost that, especially in Nigeria. I feel like we've lost that because we feel like a lot of us are just Muslim by default. We're just born Muslim, and, they say we should pray, we pray. They say that if somebody doesn't cover their head, haram, make sure you tell the person that they should do it. Make sure you shout at the person. Make sure, whenever somebody attacks your Islam, make sure and it gets me thinking about, how far we have to go in, even we ourselves, in relearning Islam. Not to not even talk about how we want other people to perceive us, how we want to portray Islam. Because I don't know what you want to portray if you're not it. Do you understand what I mean? Like, you're not it and you want to portray something. So what are you trying to do? I should listen to your words, but not the actions of how many billion people in the world, and no matter what we do, it is what is loud that counts. So for example, what I'm trying to say is, so we can all be good in our lexicons and all of those things, and that might seem enough. But what happens is that the people who get the publicity are the people who do Islam a great disservice. The people who are terrorists or do whatever. And we can sit down and debate that. Oh, it's the media that's trying to do that. Oh, it's Islamophobia and all of that, all well and good. But my point today is we have to take personal responsibility in amplifying, Islam as it should be. We have to take personal responsibility in ensuring that we are, as Muslims, we are putting our own, we're trying to contribute to the collective image of Islam. I know a lot of people that will tell you, I want to wear a hijab, not for anything, because it's not even the Christians that are going to be my issue. It's going to be the Muslims that are going to attack me. And I don't want to put myself on that kind of pedestal. We need to begin to rethink the matters of the heart. Rethink things like compassion and kindness. Rethink the very fitrah of Islam. And to go back to that, because what happens is that we are continuously making Islam difficult for people, and Allah does not intend to make it difficult for anybody, but we make it hard for people. And guess what? They're like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Thank you. Goodbye. I'd rather go to these people. They seem chilled and nice. And you know what? At the end of the day, God is going to see my heart anyway. So goodbye. Thank you. And bye. And sadly, a lot of us are losing people from the fold of Islam. And, we have this attitude that, they had their priority wrong. Your heart should be with, I get it, yes. But at the same time, does that excuse us from putting the right foot forward? Does that excuse us from ensuring that we have the proper image? Does that excuse us from being people that are kind and compassionate? No. So guess what? Maybe we need to start rethinking our Islam. Maybe we need to, especially in this era. I mean, this is 2020, and you don't want to know, like, the kind of tweets that I saw. A part of me was really, I was really hurt by it, because I was like, no, this is not Islam. And you're trying to explain to people, and they're like, why must it be you people? Why must it be you people? Why can't it be a Christian that would do it? Why can't it be an atheist? Why must it be you people that will always be the ones to... And I'm like, I got lost. I was lost for words, because on the one hand, while I'm there defending, there were other Muslims that were saying, yes, kidnap him, detain him. Why would he insult our religion? And I'm like, yo, Allah is not powerless. Allah sees everything. So why do you think that your ego is going to stand in the place of the power and the might of Allah? Like, why do you have to feel like you have to take on Allah's duty for him? That is ego. That is not the heart. That is just your ego that is standing in the way. That is your identity, what you think your identity is. And that's just the fact that your ego has been bruised. And the same thing will probably happen if somebody insulted your culture or something like that. Because it's not about the culture, it's about you. You are feeling like the person has insulted you. It is me you are insulting, and then you react. Those are your nerves. And those are the very things that we're supposed to be fighting, right? But what happens is that we are driven by them, and we cloak them in Islam. Because guess what? Muslims cannot debate when you say, oh, Fisabilillah, this is by Allah, and this is this. And before you know, everybody retreats. No. Let's be honest. We need to be honest with ourselves. We need to be honest about our Islam. We need to be honest about the people around you. You need to be honest about yourself and your heart and the state of your heart. You need to ask yourself, am I immersing myself a lot in the mechanics that have taken away the heart? Or is there a way I can put my heart back into the things that I'm doing? And outside of my acts of worship, can I continue my day? Can I go on with my day with, sheer purity and honesty and sincerity of my intentions and my thoughts and my deeds? Can I do that? I hate to say it, but it's just human decency 101. I don't even feel like it's about Islam. I feel like it's just about being decent human beings. Like sometimes we're so quick to drag and it's just sad, the state that we have come to, and it makes sense. Because we believe now on some level inside out, even though we don't verbally express it, we now believe that just because I pray 5 times a day, just because I do my tahajjud, just because I read my Quran, then that's it. That's not it. That's not it at all. In fact, you have probably missed the most important part, which is your heart. And I wish I could start going into like verses of the Quran or the Hadith and things like that, but I don't think you even need that. I don't think that we need a verse to tell us to be kind. I don't think we need a verse to tell us to be compassionate of other people. I don't think we need a verse to tell us that, you know what, we should talk to people like we would like people to talk to us. I don't think we need that. You know, I don't think we need to begin to sit down and do bad things and wait for somebody to tell you otherwise by quoting the Quran to you. No, you know that it's wrong. You know, so it's just that I just feel like we need to be able now more than ever to strip ourselves from this obligation, this public obligation of I'm doing it for my parents, I'm doing it for my culture, I'm doing it for, you know, the people around me. And I know that those influences are strong, but breaking those down starts with you and I. It really does start with you and I. It starts with our ability to begin to shift people's perspective that, you know what, it's okay to outwardly portray a certain thing, but if somebody is not that thing on the inside, then we're doing the entire community a huge disservice. And it's why certain things can thrive within supposedly Islamic and religious settings. You know, it's why people can do really hurtful things, and you're like, oh my gosh, and they said you're such good Muslims. I'm like, you know what, it's not the person's fault. We all have a role to play, because guess what, we're now telling people wear the hijab, but we're not telling them connect with Allah. We're not teaching them about sincerity. We're not teaching them about, you know, being the best in our attitudes. We're just saying, have you prayed? Go and pray, you know. And I don't want it to, again, I don't want it to seem like I'm telling people not to do the mechanics. I'm just saying, have we balanced it? Are we, as much as we're telling people to do all of these things, can we at least stop and realize the effect? Clearly, what is happening today is a consequence of how we have been conditioned, and how we're conditioning other people to see Islam and to be Muslims, you know. And it's not working, guys. It's not working. You know, I don't know where you are and, you know, what you have seen about Islam, but from my own dealings, I see it every day that, you know what, Muslims need to rethink Islam. And I don't mean change Islam, I mean go back to what Islam really means. And if you take nothing away from here today, I want you to take away the fact that, you know, we all have the power and we all have the resources to go and unlearn certain things that have been called Islam and be cloaked in the cloth of Islam, but isn't really Islam. I feel like we all have a personal responsibility to go and dig deeper into how our thoughts, how sincerity and intention, you know, is the light that shines through our deeds, as against just focusing on the deeds alone. I feel like we all need to go back to rethink how, you know, we're telling other people about Islam, and, you know, how we generally do it, and how very unattractive it is. And it's not just unattractive, it chases people away. Yeah, because it's not working. So for me, that is putting the heart back in Islam. It's in our act of worship, yes, but it's also in outside of our act of worship. It's also in, you know, how we portray ourselves digitally and offline and every other thing in between. So yes, guys, so if you have a question regarding how to put your heart back into Islam, so Karim says some do it to please their parents. Yes, definitely. Some people don't even know the meaning of Islam. Yeah, I get you. You know, so if you have a question regarding that, I just wanted to keep it short and very punchy, because I felt like it's something that's been burning in me. And, you know, I dare say it's one of the reasons I don't do a lot of work in the Muslim community, because as much as I want to do things for Muslims, I believe that, you know, Muslims are not ready for things to be done to them. They're not ready to receive whatever is coming. And sadly, it's almost like we don't have the right mindset. But, yeah. You know, we are the ones that chase people away from doing good within the community, you know. And I'm sure anybody who has gone out of their way, I'm sure Zara will be able to relate. I'm sure a lot of people within this network will be able to relate with the fact that sometimes you're doing things for the community, and it's still the people within the community that tend to just be very, you know, crude and rude about it, you know. So yeah. So if you do have any questions for me, yeah, anything about, you know, how I see Islam and Muslims, and, you know, I feel like this ties into the theme of Soulful Ramadan. I feel like we need to go back and really understand Islam, and not just read, you know, Quran as in, oh, Allah says we should read the Quran, but really understand it, and not just understand it, but really understand what the real Arabic was trying to say, and not just hold onto the translation alone, because a lot of good meaning, sweet meaning, is actually lost in the translation. I feel like we should also read a lot about our history as Muslims and begin to read about the Sunnah and the life and times of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I feel like a lot of that will give us context, about Islam. I feel like we need to purge ourselves of a lot of ego-driven activities. When I say ego, I don't even mean arrogance. I just mean activities that perpetuate the idea that we're superior, either superior to our fellow Muslims or superior to non-Muslims. I feel like a lot of things come out of that. Like, I don't see any reason why anyone goes and talks down to a Christian just because the Christian said something wrong. I just don't see it, except that you feel in your heart that, you are more superior. And that's a problem, because you're not. You're not more superior simply because you call yourself Muslim. Whether you're superior or not is for Allah to determine. And for now, we're all just going to be hoping and praying for Allah's grace and mercy. And that is something that is very, very widespread within the Muslim community. It's the fact that we have become so arrogant. We have used Islam to perpetuate our arrogance, our personal arrogance, and then we call it Islam. But it's not Islam. It's our own nafs. It's our own sense of self, that gets in the way of that collective identity. Let me take a couple of questions. Someone says, is it really hard to learn Arabic? I don't really think it's hard to do anything, but then that's just me. I don't really think it's hard to learn anything if you really want to learn it, if you make it a priority. I do know that sometimes, psychologically speaking, as we get older, it can be a bit, we may need to put in a lot of time and effort to learn new skills and to change habits. And that's generally because at that time, our certain neural paths in our brain have already been formed because we're adults. However, it doesn't mean that we cannot unlearn and relearn things. So that's where I would answer the question from. So I don't think it's really hard. I would say that, it requires some commitment and you have to be willing to make that commitment. So somebody else says, Khadija, how do we encourage someone to do the mechanics like praying in a nice, compassionate way? I think the real question is, what's your drive for telling somebody to do that? What's your drive? Why do you want to tell the person? I feel like a lot of times we want people to do things because they're not doing it. It is hurting us in some way. And it's making us feel a bit like superior, or it's making us feel like you should be doing it. And we feel like we have that Voltron role to play. And a lot of times I ask people, if indeed you're sincere, then go without telling the person and let me see how you feel. If it really pinches you so much, like so much, then maybe it's not really about getting the person closer to Allah. Maybe it's more like satisfying your inner self. And I'm not saying that we cannot be compassionate and also tell people to, do the mechanics and all of that. I'm just saying that we need to rethink where our intention is coming from. I remember saying in one of my talks that one of the best ways to get people to do something is not to tell them to do it. And there is a lot of truth in it. And I'm not saying it applies to all situations. I'm just saying it's something to think about. A lot of times, and I see this in my own life as well, I have seen that I've been able to influence people, particularly by not telling them what to do. I think a lot of times we think that it is by saying do it that somebody does it. Sometimes it's not even about that. Sometimes it's about giving them a reason. And sometimes it's about being the reason. Sometimes it's about you embodying what is attractive about praying or salah. I think it's about that more than it is about go and do it. You should do it. All of that. Like, why do we always, I think the real question for me a lot of times is, why do we always feel a sense of obligation to do that? And I know there is a good side of it, having that sense of obligation to, like, okay, you want the person to be closer to Allah and all of that. But a lot of times, really, and I dare say majority of the time, it's not really about that. A lot of times it's about us. There's something that we feel like you should be praying. Why are you not praying? It reminds me of my mom. I hope she's not on this, because my mom is always on all my live streams. Mommy, I hope you're not there. Okay. So my mom will always be like, tell this person to do this. And I'm like, yeah, but we are doing this. Why are you not telling the person to do it? What kind of selfish person are you? And I'm like, I'm actually not being selfish. I'm actually letting the person do it. Because what's happening is that a lot of times when we try to tell people, what we do is that we push them further away. We make them defensive. And that does a lot more worse work than, trying to be compassionate. And sometimes being compassionate is not using your words. Sometimes being compassionate is, I remember one time, shortly after I retook my Shahada, and I'd returned back home from school. And, you know, I remember my sister telling me like, wow, she has never seen Islam this beautiful before. You know, and I didn't have to tell anybody do this and do that and don't do this. I just embodied it. And I didn't tell anybody anything. You know, and, you know, alhamdulillah, like, mashallah, I'm not saying that I'm perfect or anything. I'm just saying that this idea, this is almost like a compulsion. We feel like we need to tell people to do things. Cover your hair, you should wear your hijab because it's a duty. I'm like, yo, okay, can we chill out? There's enough information out there. A lot of people, chances are that you're not the first person telling the person, you're not the second person, you're not the third person. So at this point in time, all of you are beginning to sound like broken records and begin to irritate the person. So chill. One of the best ways in this time and era where there's information overload and everybody feeling the need to be the one to tell people to do things, one of the best ways to actually get people to do things is not to tell them to do anything. You know, so I think that's just something to think about. I'm just going to scroll back up. Jazakallahu khair wa iyyakum. I think making dua for their guidance as well. Absolutely, absolutely. Like, do all of those things. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to link it to the topic that I'm actually addressing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't like do all of those things, like making dua for them and occasionally sending them some resources that will hopefully guide them, or telling them, oh, follow the Faria network, you know, such an amazing network and all of that. You know, a lot of times it doesn't have to be us, but the thing is that we're so bent on it being us to be the ones to change people. You know, she should do this, you know, and I'm like, chill. So what would happen if you just sent an article? You know, what would happen if you just said it once and left it like that? Why is it choking you? If you were really that sincere, why do you feel like, you know, it's almost like she's doing something wrong to you by not, you know, listening to you? So yeah, I can't agree with you less, Khadija. You're welcome. Funny how I can relate to asking for my sis, actually. We're always pushing her to pray. Try not pushing her and see what happens. So Kareem says, coming from Muslim family doesn't mean you know it all. It's quite beautiful. I think some Muslims are ashamed of Islam out there. And again, I dare say that I understand. You know, I really tweeted it last week and I said, I totally understand. I totally understand why anybody would leave Islam. And that may be a shock for a lot of people and it may make you uncomfortable. But just look around you. It makes sense. It makes sense. And I don't even mean like in the West or anything. I mean like here in Nigeria. You know, I just feel like it makes sense. We're very uncompassionate. We're very vile. Like, and I don't mean everybody. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's the community image. It's the communal image. And it is a lot of times more powerful than the self-identity, you know, and that's what is important, you know, a lot of times, because what we don't get is that we just feel like, you know what, I'm doing my own Islam. But no, the image of the Islam of the community is more powerful than the image of a single individual. You know, and that's something that we must always, always, always keep at the fore of our minds. And it's so important. So you might be ashamed of Islam. And, you know, I'm sure by the time I sit with you and I ask you a couple of questions, it might make sense to me why you're actually ashamed of Islam. It might not be about Islam, but it might actually be because of Muslims, you know. And we can spend from today to next week trying to debate Muslims are different from Islam and yada, 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 yada. But at the end of the day, you're the only Islam that people are going to ever have contact with. So, yeah, that's it. You are the Islam. You are supposed to be the walk in Islam. We are supposed to be the walk in Islam. So when we're not kind and we're not compassionate and we're very intolerant and all of those things, we're only hurting ourselves. We're not saying, I beg, it's just people, Jerry, you know. No, we're only as safe as the people that are, you know, the least safe. We're only as compassionate as the people who are the least compassionate. You know, so we have to understand why we need to collectively lift our salam, you know, because I can't remember how many tweets when it was like a group of us Muslims trying to like tweet Quranic verses and things like that, and we're just trying to, on Twitter, we're really trying to like go hard, and they're like, where are the Muslims? Where are they? When it comes to things like this, why is it that you people always keep quiet? Because you know, because somewhere within you, you people know that your Islam commands you to do violence and things like that. And we were there really trying to like, oh no, that's not how it is. This is how it is. And I know that a lot of times we're like, you know what, people are going to believe whatever they want to believe. But I think sometimes we need to actually make an effort, because I don't think we've actually made an effort. Honestly, I don't think we've made good enough efforts at all. You know, I don't think we have. I think we just feel like, you know what, I beg you. You know, we talk about it in our circles and then that's it. You know, no. And I think we need to start doing that. So yeah. Yeah. sister, how would you deal with waswas of shaitan about whether Islam is the truth? Like, I know in my heart that Islam is the truth. When I'm trying to get closer to Allah, I get crazy waswas. Okay. So how I explain this can be quite it might raise a couple of eyebrows, and some people may be very uncomfortable with it. On the one hand, I don't know what is ever going to tell you 100% that Islam is the truth. I'm just going to be outright flat with you. I'm sorry if this is like, Fariha Network. I'm not trying to tell anybody that Islam is not the truth. Obviously, I'm a Muslim and I believe Islam is the truth. I think it's not. I'm trying to explain it in a way that is relatable across the board. I think it's about the fact that, we are. I really want to choose my words very carefully because, again, we're not a very tolerant people. You see, that's the problem. We're not very tolerant, so now I have to work on eggshells so that somebody doesn't take my words out of context and start sending me DMs. And people actually got death threats on Twitter, by the way, with the story I'm talking about. Because we Muslims, and it was Muslims threatening Muslims, that we should keep quiet and not say that, and yada, but that's okay. So I feel like if you have chosen Islam as your path, then equip yourself with knowledge. When something is not firm, whatever it is, so let's say, let me use, I'm going for a speaking engagement and I feel I'm scared and all of that. A lot of it, if there is no underlying, anxiety or anything like that, a lot of it may be a lack of preparation. And what does that mean? There isn't enough knowledge to help you be confident about it. So what I would say regarding this is, do you have enough knowledge? Do you have enough knowledge to help you feel 100% confident about your choice of Islam? That's it. That's it. And I feel like it's not so much about, whether you're feeling sad about it and all of that. I feel like all of us once in a while, get to that place where, we want to dig into Islam. This can potentially be your route into digging into Islam, into understanding Islam, into coming to your own conclusions, because again, this isn't about, I've chosen Islam, I don't want to feel like a failure that I lost the argument, so I'm going to stick to Islam, because that's what a lot of people do. People who, do Islamic debates and things like that, maybe they find that, there's something that is quote unquote flawed about something, They don't want to go back and say, actually, because guess what? It's not the ego. It's not the ego that's coming to play saying, hold on to it. No matter what, don't tell them. But that's not the point. The point is go and equip yourself with stories, the knowledge, and all of that. And if you feel like you're not there yet, then I would say that perhaps you might want to stay away from debates and all of that, because that's debates. I tell people, like, I don't do debates. I can do conversations. I love conversations a lot. I don't do debates because by the very definition of the debates, there is a winner. And when you're trying to win, you're not trying to learn. You're not giving room. You're not making space for people to bring views honestly in a very kind and compassionate way. So I don't do debates. I can do conversations if people are willing to understand and talk politely and exchange valuable ideas and are willing to be vulnerable and, to move if something, clear comes to them. But aside that, I can totally relate with, you saying, thoughts of atheism and agnosticism, ideas in your mind and all of that. Yeah. I just feel like let that be what pushes you back into understanding Islam properly. And, go with it, It's not about your identity as much as it is about the truth. If you get what I mean, So I think we hold on to that identity so much that we don't want to look at truth. So, and truth is truth, irrespective, So yeah, any other questions before I go? The knowledge will give certainty, inshallah. Absolutely. Inshallah, jazakallahu khair. Wa iyyakum. Thank you so much, Nima. The best is to read Quran, equip yourself with a lot of knowledge. Yep. And I mean, can I just put that, like, you're equipping yourself not to go and debate. You're equipping yourself for your own intentions, That's it. Because a lot of times what we do is that we equip ourselves. We just go straight to the Quran that talks about Jesus and, Jesus and, you know, the things that we can use as punchlines. That's what we do, you know. We don't really learn Islam in its entirety. And that just shows us where our intention is. Our intention is, at least if they come, I'm equipped. I got them. They should come. It's not about ourselves, you know. It's not about our hearts. So that's something I'll say. Yeah, dua helps, telling Allah what you feel and asking for beneficial knowledge. Absolutely, absolutely. Nothing like sorry, sister, no Islam, no salvation. Okay. Jazakallah khair wa iyyakum. So any last minute questions? I am wrapping up right now. So I would just say thank you so much for listening to this. If you take nothing away, just take away, how can I put my heart back into what it is that I'm doing? You know, how can I put my heart back into it? How can I put my heart back into it? How can I put my heart back into it? I think a lot of us need to work on our ego. And again, I don't mean ego like we call it arrogance. No, I don't mean that ego. I mean ego as in our lower self, or nafs. The part of us that feels like, is that story we're telling ourselves. You know, that guy is not praying because, and can you imagine? So we that we're praying and go, we are what? That's your ego, you know. I feel like a lot of us, when we purge our ego, a lot of things will seem clearer to us. But we don't take enough time to do that because we're so stuck in doing the mechanics. So yes, absolutely. I mean. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Any last minute questions? In 30 seconds, I will sign out. So yes, I am Hauwa, and I will continue in the stories, a couple more posts before I sign out for today. And I am at Hauwa_Ojeifo. You can follow me there, and my organization is at She Right Woman. So yeah, so we can go into the stories and we can continue there, and you can send DMs, and if you need any clarifications and things like that. Thank you so much, Nima Muslimatri, Lil Silver Lining. I love that name. Kareem Ibrahim. I'm worldwide Tanzania. Thank you so much. Simi Salaligas. Khadija. I see you all. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye.